Today's guest is the incredible Dr. Kat Meyer, and we're going to be speaking about relationships, sexuality, and embodiment. So, Dr. Kat, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Oh, so good. And my total pleasure.
Yes. So I love to kick off these interviews with a simple question about what it is. Well, it's actually not simple. It can lead to lots of many things. What it is that you do and how you got to where you are today, please.
Yeah. So I am a sex and relationship therapist, and I'm also a yoga instructor. And I founder of Sex Love Yoga and host of Eat, Play, Sex podcast, where I talk about everything related to nutrition, sexuality, relationships, how to up level all of them. And I also have some in-person workshops called Undone Yoga, and I know we'll probably get into that a little bit, but it's really about reclaiming ourselves, reclaiming our body, loving being in our body, and changing the messages around sensuality.
Oh, feels. As you're saying that, I just feel good.
Let's all just feel ourselves.
Yes. But it's so important too, because I'm at a place in my life now where I'm actually okay in my body. There's little parts that I like niggle at. I'm like, oh, my little boobs. And then I'm like, no, but I feel so much happier now. And it breaks my heart to think of all of the men and women, but mostly women, I think, but a lot of men deal with this too. People who just aren't comfortable in themselves and how debilitating that can be. And I'm curious, how did you get into this world of work?
So this actually was born from my own experiences, from my own difficulty. I struggled. I had sexual trauma from an early age that developed into depression and anxiety and eating disorders for 11 years. So there was a really strong mistrust of my body and, not feeling safe of being there. And then layer on top of that, all the messages that we receive as the collective woman about what it means to be sensual, or what it means to be sexual. And so it was my very first yoga class when I was 18 years old that I remember laying there in Shavasana, which is the last pose of the class. And I was like, oh my God, I actually feel really good in my body.
Wow.
I was like, and it was a shocker to me because everybody else is probably like, oh, okay, what is that? But for me, I had so much anxiety and so much buzzing and discomfort in my body that I never wanted to be in it. So I had a constant disconnect with the body. And that was the first time that I it was like the epiphany that I could feel a different way.
Wow. And so from that, so you were doing yoga, and then what happened next? Did you know that this is the work that I want to be doing at that point of 18? Were you kind of recovering from the stuff that was going on with you, or is it still quite a process?
So that was my first, I would say, the first step into my journey, because then I dove into yoga. I started teaching shortly after. I started exploring more around relationships. I was reading everything about sexuality and all the research articles, and I applied to grad school for that specific thing. And to really understand how to connect with people in intimacy, because I didn't even have that. Everything freaked me out.
Right.
But it was so fascinating because I went about it the intellectual way. I went about it by reading things. So I could spurt off anything around orgasms or how the body worked, anatomy and everything, but I couldn't actually embody it. Right. I was still so petrified in my body and so frozen in my body. And so I dove into exploring Reiki energy work, which is a whole nother story, and magic happenings of how I got into that. But then I realized that healing happened on multi-levels. Yeah. So it wasn't just the yoga or the psychology, but there's these layers of energy work. And then there's all these teachings that we learn from other women who show us that it's okay to show up however you want to and move however you want to. These walking permission slips of being something wild and untamed that I had no idea how to even grasp that.
You're making me feel all sexual again, and it feels great. I just think but it's just so funny that it gets so repressed from women mostly, as if there's kind of something wrong with it. And even as you're saying things, there's like part of my mind that was like, yeah, but you can't be too sexual. And I'm like, but why? Where do these kind of beliefs come from? Our conditioning.
Absolutely.
And I there's this I'm curious because I speak to a lot of people, and I stopped drinking. I go through phases where I don't drink sometimes, and sometimes I do. And a few years ago, I stopped drinking for about 2.5 years, and it was fantastic. But one of them was just being present with people sexually was like one of the, not one of the reasons for stopping drinking, but that was one of the things that I noticed was different. And I speak to a lot of people that like the first time they're with people, partners, sexual, they're always drunk. And so it's this whole thing about like, being intimate with somebody and us finding that so difficult to connect. What's been your experience of how to build intimacy and have a connection for people that previously would have just kind of out of their body? I guess being in your body is probably a good place to start, right? But how do you work with people about, being okay with being intimate with, I guess, yourself and with other people?
Yeah, well, I think first we have to look at the relationship that our society has around pleasure.
Yeah.
And it's not a good one.
Right.
I think we've built a culture around this punishment ethos, or we gain motivation through criticizing. We want to avoid pain. We want to avoid criticism. So we're going to act a certain way, or we're going to do things a certain way to get that met. And we're afraid of pleasure because pleasure requires us a level of letting go. Now, physically, that manifests because when we relax in our body, our sensory receptors open, which makes us more sensitive. And for some of us, we all have this threshold of how much we can hold. And when we press up against that edge, we can get the expanding sensation of pleasure through the body can be overwhelming. So then we want to clamp down, we want to squeeze, we want to contract because we don't want to let go. So think about when we're on substances, when we're drinking alcohol, that shuts down the inhibitions for us to be able to be there and be loosey and be, in that space. But at the same time, it's also capping our pleasure potential because it's not allowing us to lean into the edges. Not really.
I see. I definitely get what you're saying there. And so what are ways that people can without being drunk, without being on things, lean in? Is there like is it something that we do on our own? Can it be done in a relate with a partner? Like, what are good ways of doing that?
Both. And I think if we look at it even outside of just sex, how do we show up in the rest of the day? When we get contracted, when we tense in the body, can we choose expansion instead? Can we relax into the body? So can we use the breath? Meditation is very powerful, but I would encourage a mindfulness practice or a body-focused meditation like Vipassana, where you go into the body and you feel for the different contractions and how the body is essentially communicating with you. But then another one is being brave. Just because something is scary or we're unsure about something, can we go into it and instead of staying clenched, relax into it and speak to it? Can we be vulnerable? Can we express our internal experience? Right now, I'm so nervous to lean into you. I'm nervous. I really want to kiss you, but I don't know. I'm finding myself stuck there.
And are you saying voice that with the partner if you're there? And
oh my God, absolutely. Because if we think about this, that's intimacy. Intimacy is seeing into you and your internal process. And how often when we vocalize these vulnerabilities, the other human feels permission to be able to be human themselves.
And something I've noticed, again, in conversations and in my own experience, is like people not communicating what they are comfortable with or what they want or what they would like. And then it just, it's just, I think for a lot of people, there's a real issue with just sharing your truth. And I would like this, please, or like try it like this. And I've definitely been with guys in the past that are like, well, you should just really obnoxious in a way of kind of like, well, you should like it like this because other people like it like this. And I was kind of shocked by that and really disappointed. So there's definitely men and women, I'm sure, that can react in defensive ways and not be open to listening. But yeah, just it is so important to be able to share what feels good or what you'd like or what you need.
Right. And it's all based out of fear, right? We're afraid because sex is something so vulnerable and real, and it's this expression of who we are authentically, or it can be, or we can adopt this socially constructed idea of what sex is and choose that as our own. But is that really our erotic blueprint, or is that something that we're adopting from somebody else? And we do that because we want to be in control. We want to be in power, right? Oh, if I can get her off in this way, and she, orgasms, oh, but she's not orgasming, then we take that personally. But if we switch the script and we say, instead of just focusing on your pleasure and what I can do to get you there, I would invite people to come back into your own body and into your own pleasure and allow that authentic pleasure to radiate back out. And how can we even go there if we don't begin to be curious about what it is that we could like?
Yeah. So that leads me on to my next question, which is how do we find those things? How do we find our erotic blueprint, which is a great term. I want one. And then when I meet a man, I'm like, this is the blueprint.
Well, and there's so many ways that we can, first invite a curious mindset, which is the number one thing we've got to do. We've got to say that maybe this isn't it. Yeah. Maybe there's more. Maybe my sex life has infinite potential, but only if I allow it to be. And I can redefine what it is that sex means for me. So once we have that step, then we can start researching. We can look up things that we've always been interested or even just curious, following your curiosity, following something that creates interest in you. So whether it's podcasts, whether it's articles, whether it's going to the sex shop, or maybe it's just talking to your partner and being like, hey, I've always been curious about trying this, and I wonder if you would play with me and try this out. And the reason why I say play is because that takes the pressure off of it being a personal about me that this has to succeed.
Right.
If we set the intention of we're going to play and we're going to explore and try this out, then if it fails, doesn't work out, it's not because it has to do with me and my value as a sexual person.
Right. I'm glad that you said that, and I think that's a great technique or way of approaching it. Can we play? Can we try this? I met a woman on a plane a few months back, and she was, I think it was like her 40th birthday or something like that, and she was with her husband, and she has been like fantasizing and just wanting to be more experimental sexually, and they've always had quite a vanilla, I guess, sex life, and I love it. This woman was telling me all this stuff on the plane. It was her and her friend. We were just like going in about everything. It was insane.
Oh my God.
And she was saying that she'd recently discovered there was like a guy at work that had been paying her attention, and women are in the prime of their sexuality in like their 40s. Is that true? Like around that age, late 30s, 40s?
It depends on who you talk about.
Okay.
Because we're looking at, yes, you have less inhibitions because you're like, I don't give a, and I don't know if I could curse on here, but you can, so a lot of people don't care as much. And so they're like, no, I deserve this. I want this. I can have this. But at the same time, as we can look at the levels of hormones playing a role in more of our 20s. So really it just depends on where you're at in your development.
Okay, gotcha. That's good to know. I'll look into that some more. So she's feeling great, feeling sexual, feeling like attractive from the attention she's getting from other people, but her husband just wasn't that interested sexually in like being open and trying things. So I like that way of broaching it by asking, I want to try this. Do you want to play? Is a fun way of doing it. What are other ways that people could do that if they're maybe in a relationship with someone that's just not as willing? And at what point would you say, like if someone's really not sexually fulfilled, at what point do you walk away? Like, or do you see a lot of people that walk away from these things? And because I'm sure that's something that a lot of people deal with. So yeah, are there other ways of encouraging someone to play? Maybe start with that question.
Yeah, absolutely. So I get a lot of couples who come into me with that same exact question. And I think mismatch of libido and mismatch of desire is one of the number one reasons it's really high reason why couples end up splitting or, lead to sexless marriages, which is having sex less than 10 times per year.
Oh, man.
The thing is that we have to understand that our sexual script is different for every single one of us. depending on everything that we've experienced in our lives, from sexual experiences to non-sexual experiences, that have formulated what we deem erotic and a turn on. So I bring people into essentially creating an erotic map. Again, being curious about who I am as a sexual being, how I see sex, identifying what could be some of the things that are putting on the brakes for me, and it could be some of the things that could accelerate my sexual desire.
Right.
And when you know those two things, even if you're not really that interested in sex, or you're not interested in trying things out, you can understand what is putting on the brakes so that you can empower yourself to make that choice.
Right.
Now, there are some people who just don't want sex in their lives. Somebody who identifies as asexual, sex is not a part of their life. It's not something that they're interested in at all. And we don't want to push anybody unless they say it's a problem for me.
Right.
So
and that's fair. Yeah.
Then we can look at it. We can start a conversation around it. We can look at some of the underlying motivations behind that, because there may be reasons of, I'm so fatigued that to think about, and I've expended so much energy, and I see this a lot for women, that I can't think about bringing forth any more energy or giving more than what I already have. I'm already done. But then we look at, well, okay, if we're perceiving sex as an energy expenditure, then something's not right, because we want you to feel filled from it instead.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times it's because they're not getting the type of sex or touch or verbal language that actually turns them on. They've been getting it somebody else's script, whether it's their partners and adopting it as their own, and they're like, oh, I actually don't really like that. Maybe they're more sensual while their partner is kinky. Or maybe they're turned on more by certain words and turned off by other words. Languaging even.
So it's really looking into that for the individual and taking it from there. Because it is interesting what you say, because I would say I have a high sex drive, even though I'm single and don't have that much sex, as much as I'd like anyway. I would want to be in a relationship where it was happening all the time. And so I'm like, less than 10 times a year, wow. But then it's thinking that, some people might just not want that. And then just, you're right, understanding what is going on with each person to address what that is. And a really great point about not wanting to force people that just don't want to have sex, not forcing them to want to have sex. Like, that's a really great point. And then I think that's why it's important when you're getting to know someone to understand this, to kind of be communicating about all these types of things.
That, and also recognizing that each of us can be at a different stage of our sexual development, and we can move back and forth between these stages. Some people are in the healing stage. Some people, their nervous system is so activated that to be turned on, they get frozen.
Right.
So that's another thing that I see, especially in women, but also in men, where they keep turning down their partner on sexual initiation because they're nervous. They get so clenched in the body, and they don't even realize why that is. So then I come in and I help them, work with the nervous system and regulate the nervous system and teach them how to calm themselves down. And that's where yoga and breath work comes in so much handy. Be able to help get unstuck from there.
I love that. And great point. It changes. It's not just like, doesn't have to be like a fixed state that we're in all the time.
Right.
So can you tell us about the science of play? What's that? I'm my favorite. For anyone listening, I'm being very animated and like squiggly today.
It's infectious, I know. Yeah, play is such a fascinating phenomenon, because we don't do enough of it. Because again, it's another very vulnerable thing. It's us being in our full authenticity. It's us being fully present in the moment. It's us letting go of self-consciousness. It's being in flow state. It's being immersed and interested and in something that has meaning for us.
Right.
And for many of us, we're stuck on this trajectory of how much can I produce in this amount of time? What's the next thing? What's something that's stimulating? I got to go, 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 go. And then we're burned out and we don't know why. It's almost like sleep deprivation, right? We stay up till all the hours of the night working throughout the week, and then we sleep in on the weekend. So sometimes, you know, the whole idea of work hard, play hard. But the key there is to find the balance in all of this. And the problem is that if we are self-conscious about being playful, because again, this is, you know, we're showing ourselves and who we are without the filter, then we've got to find more of a balance between spontaneity and monitoring. And I think so many of us are in this space of monitoring and analyzing and controlling ourselves that we forget about being spontaneous or just cracking a joke or just putting something out there. This is the no filter kind of thing, right? So if we're so far into the spontaneity, then we'll say things and sometimes it doesn't land. And then everybody's like, oh, why did she just say that? You know, I'm like, that was inappropriate. So we've got to have a balance. We've got to be able to monitor also what we say and have that land. So I find that, again, coming back to Vipassana meditation, where we're practicing tuning into the process of our body, or going to a yoga class, again, where we're regulating the nervous system. And I keep bringing it back to the body for a very specific reason, because we're constantly on this high drive, you know, fight or flight response on a regular basis, because we're so overstimulated and we're pressuring ourselves so much that it's impacting even our way of being able to relax or lean in or have fun. You know, we've deemed having fun something that we have to do when our to-do list is completely done, or when we have time, quote unquote, because we don't actually have time. We fill it with something. And so by creating consciousness around that, and then also seeking out things that have meaning for us, you know, getting curious about what we're excited about, what we're interested in, because that's what's going to help refuel us. Not just doing something out of obligation or because we're supposed to or because it's going to bring us a lot of money, but doing things just for the sake of it.
I love it. The episode that's coming out next week is all about sort of being in that state of flow. And one of the things that the guest Jackie was saying was it's when you're in that state, when you're in alignment with your passion and purpose and the things that you want to be doing. And so it is just important to, even if it's not your career, to be doing the things that you love. I preach that all the time. Like if you love singing, you just sing. Like you don't have to be Beyonce, but you can find time to do the thing that you love. If you like art, get creative. Just sketching at night before you go to bed. Just like find the time to do that. And play. There was a great documentary on Netflix, I think, about play, and they talk about these baboons that are always playing all the time, and they feature Burning Man as like just a place where people go and play, and festivals and things like that. And it's just, we take ourselves so seriously, adults, you know, and it's just like find that inner child again and be playful in our day to day and at work. And yeah, you're right. You can't just be like outrageous and get yourself fired. Like have that awareness, but just bring that spark of enjoyment back. Yes.
Right. It's a mindset, you know, it's a mindset.
Totally.
To be engaged with the present moment. And the more we can be engaged with the present moment, then the more that things just spontaneously come out of our head. And we crack jokes, or we invite some, you know, we make a social connection with somebody, or we laugh, or, you know, all these things that make us feel connected and refueled.
Yep. And it is what you said about the mindset, like mindset, shifting it from, if you're in a work situation, there's something stressful happening, gamify it, like make it a little challenge for yourself. Or, you know, I find when something I say, if someone's being really obnoxious or they're really struggling with a relationship with somebody, it's like, make it your intention to like understand that other person. So rather than take it personally and be offended or like bothered by their obnoxiousness or whatever it is, kind of gamify it and make it, how can I win this person over? Like, how can I figure out what's going on with them and have them actually really love me? And then shift the energy and what you do with them. So just last little question, because you've got some great questions. How can we design like a relationship and a sex life? How do we create that? Like either as like a single person,
Mm-hmm.
or like as a couple?
Yeah. So I talk to people. I actually just did a Instagram live about this.
Cool.
I teach people about relationship design. So when we can which means that we can create whatever type of relationship that we want, and owning it as ours. It's almost like Build-A-Bear, but for love, right?
Yeah.
This is mine. It's exactly as I want it. And it's and if we have a partner, we can co-create that. As we invite partners in, they can be a part of that co-creation as well. But I think the very first step in that is learning what your origin of influence is. So looking at your family, looking at culture, looking at the life experiences that formulated the messages of what intimacy means to you, what fidelity means to you, what a relationship means to you, what commitment means to you. And when we can understand what those are and how that interplays our expectations of what we have as a relationship, then we can empower ourselves to decide which ones I want to keep and which ones I want to redefine for myself. Mm-hmm.
Like that.
Yeah, so that's the first part. And then it's also practicing tuning inward. What is my truth? How many times do we enter into a relationship and it's not how we want it? Or say we met somebody and they say that they're polyamorous, and we're like, okay, but we because we really like this person, we're like, I could do that too. And we keep choosing to, instead of staying out of the fear, keep choosing to come back to heart center, right? Which in and of it sounds like such a beautiful concept. And at the same time, if it's not your truth, then you're just rejecting yourself over and over and over again, saying that you have to be in a specific feeling state in order to move on or to keep this relationship. And maybe that relationship just actually isn't in alignment with you, but we've never given ourselves permission to stand firm in, or even know and get curious about what our truth actually is. So from there, we can begin to have these conversations. We tune into the body. Okay, that actually didn't feel good. What actually would feel good? Or what about this caused the contraction that made me feel less good about this decision or what was said?
Right.
And it isn't to say, and maybe polyamorous is something that you really want. And the contractions will still happen. The jealousy will still happen. But because you're motivated by something that you really want, then it becomes easier for you to be like, okay, let me sit with this and figure this out, what's coming up for me, so that I can continue to create the exact type of relationship or love life that I want.
Gotcha. And do you keep those Facebook, those Instagram lives on your, do they get saved anywhere? Do you keep them? Good, because we'll link to all your socials so that people can find that and learn more about that. Dr. Kat has kindly offered to give away a spot on her women's online program, which is launching July 1st. And so could you share with us a bit about that program, please? And thank you, by the way, for offering the one lucky winner.
I'm so excited. Yeah, so this program is called Love.Body, and it's a unique 6-week program guiding women to reclaim the love of being in their bodies and their sexuality. So this is a really comprehensive, holistic approach. We're looking at psychology. I have yoga classes. I work with a hormone expert who provides nutrition protocols and talks to you about how different parts of your body influence your hormone production, including the gut microbiome and your thyroid and your vaginal microbiome. I also talk about pelvic floor work, how to communicate as voice activation, and pleasure practices, and as well as identifying like why we're sabotaging our own pleasure.
That sounds incredible. So I would highly encourage women that are interested in that, please check it out. And I would also suggest for guys, sign up for the giveaway if there's someone in your life that you think might like it. We'll confirm with them first before announcing them as the winner. But I think this is so many women are going to just thrive from this. So amazing. And you also tell us about your monthly yoga class.
Yeah, so I teach this both in Los Angeles, but I've also been teaching it internationally and at large festivals as well, which has been exciting. It's called Undone Yoga. Undone meaning undoing the negative messages that we've received in society about what it means to be in our body, about our body image, and what it means to be a sensual woman. And expressing that sensuality. So we flow the yoga in our underwear to really press the edges of our discomfort in a very safe container of women only. And we slow everything down. So it's a very fluid, expressive type of yoga so that you can really get in tune with what you feel like from the inside out. And it's not so much about what does my pose look like, or what does her pose look like, or her practice look like. And at the start of each of the classes, we make a declaration to allow our bodies to move however the fuck they want to move.
Yes.
So authentic expression.
And do you have those on the West? Where in LA do you have those? And is it like the same time every month?
Yes, it's this time. We've been doing it downtown, and now we're doing it at Sanctum in Venice. And it is 7 to 9, so it's an evening class. Yeah,
lovely.
On the 24th, so it's always at near the end of each month.
Gotcha. Okay, good to know. This sounds very cool. I'm curious and I'm very interested, so I'll check this out.
Come check it out.
I think I will. Have you ever done naked yoga? What's that like? Because that's like really pushing the edges, huh? Like, I don't know that I could do that. I don't know that I could do that in a class, but like thinking about it already, I'm like, ooh.
In my house, I do, but
not in a group setting. But yeah, that's sort of liberating.
I haven't yet. I can, and I've interviewed on my own podcast a woman who does naked yoga for women, and for me, it's meeting people. I want to meet women where they are. So when I also say underwear, it's whatever that means for the women. So sometimes wearing leggings and a sports bra is pressing the edges for them. And that's what we welcome.
Fair enough.
We just welcome, lean into your discomfort.
Yeah, I love it. And so your podcast again is Eat, Pray,
Sex.
Eat, Play, Sex.
Yeah, my 3 favorite things.
Genius. You're a genius. I love it. Dr. Kat, thank you so much for talking to us today. This has been really fun and one of my favorite topics. And there's just so much that I've got from this. So thank you again for your time.
Yeah.
Giveaway. Thanks everyone for listening. I'll be back next week. Take care. Bye.
Yay. Bye.